Hello, everyone. How are you? Happy Friday once again. Made it through another week, and happy weekend as you head into that as well. So, I am back here for another Q&A for all things thyroid, hormone, fertility, and a few other things today. So we'll get right in and get started. For those of you who are new to me, I am Jennifer. I am a registered dietitian in Dallas, Texas area and help women with hypothyroidism and even things like unexplained infertility. Use really food, lifestyle, lots of things. We go really deep into some things that have never been explored before to figure out the whys. Why are things not working? Why is this not speaking to this hormone and such? So use a lot of food and lifestyle things to optimize fertility, optimize hormones, and just get you feeling great. So we are going to dive in right away with our questions today. I'm going to start with ones that two I got are very general for a lot of people, but even especially when it comes to hormone health, they play a big role. So let's go. Number one, what are the best supplements to include for immunity health? Really great question to be asking right now, and a really kind of broad answer with that. So let's talk about a few things when it comes to immunity. How I would answer this person is there's no one supplement that's going to just kind of skyrocket your immune health and keep you, immune protected forever. A lot of us have things all day long that come and challenge our immunity, be it things that are floating around right now, getting headline news, or things that we take in from foods that bacteria and particles that are on foods that our stomach acids work to digest, and our immune system is just constantly working for us. So we want to work every day to support that. And I'm going to start with something beyond supplements, because I think what this person was wanting to know is, what can I take to enhance that, which I'm going to hit on that as well. But the things that we need to be doing every single day, I cannot enhance this enough and remind myself even enough, is to really get good restorative quality sleep. That's a huge one. And that kind of starts earlier in your day than just right before bedtime. Things like, as of course we move up to bedtime, things like watching screens and eliminating those as much as possible. If you have to be on screens, because let's be honest, where do we get most of everything that we have now? Is on a screen. It's on something that has a backlight. That protecting yourself as much as you can with things like blue light blocking glasses, doing that activity as far before you go to bed as possible, 1 to 2 hours, maximizing your sleep environment with dark as can be, cool, noise reduction, or like a sound machine if that helps to kind of muffle things. So anything you can do really to enhance your sleep is going to be a great thing to do to start. Then kind of on the flip side of that, when you get up in the morning, and especially during the day, as much as you can, exposing yourself to real sunlight and unfiltered natural sunlight, especially first thing in the morning, can really help reset your hormones and kind of speak to the hormones that energize you and wake you up and say, okay, it's time to work, and all those hormones like melatonin and things like that help you sleep, it's time to be done, and it's kind of a really dial that turns those off. So sunlight in the day, really great sleep at night, real whole colorful foods, as much as that can be. I know we're all going to open a package and open a box of something, but even with those, making sure that those are as real food as they can be, without getting too crazy about it. But the more colorful we make our plates, whether it's the vegetables we choose, some fruits during the day, making it kind of hitting on that rainbow, choosing one from each little color spectrum, as much as you can during the day, can really just help speak to your body. All those colors have purpose and have unique purpose in our body. They're called phytochemicals or phytonutrients. They all have individualized names too, and they all serve a different purpose. So the more we can give ourselves those naturally in the foods that they are uniquely in and naturally in, the more our body can use those, and more so than they even would a supplement that doesn't have all the other nutrients that come in that food, other vitamins and minerals that help the absorption and help the things to work better. So food is our best source for a lot of those. Now I know food is sometimes low in nutrients, lower than it has been ever. So we will get, I am going to touch on those supplements. What are some other things? Herbs and spices. Herbs, spices, garlic, onions, oregano, basil, marjoram, all these things, thyme, rosemary. Use those to your advantage. Those are medicinal, those are healing, those have great properties to boost our immunity as well as to keep some of the kind of more pathogenic things down. So it's kind of a win-win. They help, temper the bad things and support the good. So herbs and spices, any way you can do them and as much as you can do them is great. Movement, as much as you're able. I don't want to call it exercise because some of us tend to equate exercise with sweating it out and 45 to 90-minute workouts, and it just does not need to be that. It can be as simple as some at-home yoga, of course in front of a screen maybe, a walk in your neighborhood, restorative rest even. So things that work for you without taxing yourself out and without taxing those hormones out can be great ways to just keep your body moving, keep your lymph moving, all of that. Pre and probiotic foods are great. Things like yogurts. If you're dairy sensitive, you can do coconut yogurts or different types of kefirs that are, non-dairy based. Kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles that have been, naturally fermented, things like that to boost our gut bacteria. 70+%, I've heard even upwards of 80%, depending upon what study you look at, of your immune system is on the surface of your GI system. And that's where we have all these good oh, sorry, something came in on my phone, where we have all these good bacteria that we want to proliferate, and giving them naturally pre and probiotic nutrients to grow and to thrive will help strengthen our immune system. So as much as you can get those foods in as well. Supplements. So let's hit on those. A big one that a lot of people talk about is vitamin C. That is certainly important. It's a great one to use, and certainly can be a nice kind of buffer every day to just kind of maximize. We really, it is hard to get high dose vitamin C from foods because a lot of the studies that have been done even on foods in the grocery store show that their vitamin C content is very minimal compared to what they're supposed to have. So again, just going back to the fact that even with real whole foods, we don't always get what we should have, especially if we're looking to boost beyond just the RDA of the base level. Another one that, again, super, super important is vitamin D. I recommend that people get that checked at least twice a year to just see where levels are, because I like to dose that for clients based on their needs. I don't like to just high dose vitamin D, because if we do that, we're going to start throwing off some other minerals like magnesium, calcium, the other fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin K2. These all need to work together. So when we super, super high dose something like vitamin D, all these other ones get we send the seesaw kind of out of balance. So D is definitely something I like to dose to your specific needs. Again, getting that checked a couple times a year just to make sure we're on target, and also balancing that out with some of these other like the ones I said, vitamin A, vitamin K2, which will just kind of tell calcium to get in those bones instead of laying down in joint tissue and other types of tissues in your body, arteries, things like that, calcified arteries, magnesium. So balancing that out. But vitamin D is super, super important. It's actually a pro-hormone, so it works to influence other things in your body, other systems that kind of get recharged with vitamin D. Every cell in your body uses it, so it's something to really keep up. Another one, zinc, is really important. That's another one I don't like to high dose for any long period of time, because that throws other imbalances out with things like copper and some of the other immune things. But certainly zinc, what's in a multivitamin, usually I look for about 15 milligrams. Even if I'm isolate, dosing isolated zinc, about 15 milligrams, no higher than that, especially long term in balance with other things. Selenium is another great one. Both of those are super, super important. Zinc and selenium for thyroid health as well. So if you're deficient in both of those, we can see deficiency in your ability to convert your thyroid hormone, even your thyroid's ability to produce hormone from the start. So zinc and selenium are super important for a lot of things, but immunity as well. So that's where I would cover that one. Omega-3s can be great too to help just decrease inflammation. That helps your immune system work even better because we're taking some of the burden off of these inflammatory states. So the immune system is kind of relieved of that. We're empowering it better to work better. So that's where I would start in terms of supplements. Maybe some C, some D, balanced out with K2 especially, and these other things like magnesium, vitamin A, fish oil, omega-3s is what I said, and then zinc and selenium, other great ones. So great question. Hopefully that helped. All right, number 2. I know that was a little bit long. Okay, I'm trying to stay healthy and balanced through diet alone. I really don't want to be on different supplements. However, my gut continues to give me issues. Does this mean I need supplements? The problem is figuring out exactly which ones you need. Exactly. So let me break this down a little bit more. I did hear from this person, and what she is dealing with are possible SIBO. That's a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth when your bacteria that is normally in your large intestine farther down works its way up for all kinds of different reasons into your small intestine, which is, for all intents and purposes, is not sterile, but it's very low in bacterial numbers. And when those bacterial numbers get higher, and after you eat and expose them to food, and then they kind of eat, then you have, kind of some intense bloating, a lot of discomfort, especially right after meals, things like that. So she kind of expanded on it a little bit with that. What most people do when they have some of these gut issues, what I find in clients that I've worked with, is they start taking out foods. It must be this, it must be that. So they start eliminating all these foods, and they get down to this little handful of foods that they're eating, which can be just as harmful when our body is not exposed to, again, going back to what I said with all these colors and all these different nutrients that our body likes to cycle in and out of. So that can be really, really hard, especially when you don't know, well, is this food really the one causing it? Well, my symptoms are continuing, so let me just take out another food, and let me just take out another food. Well, it's probably not the foods that you're taking out if we're still having symptoms. So it's probably something else. So this is where I would encourage this person to maybe look into some testing. The other thing with foods, that if there are some foods that you're eating that are causing inflammatory conditions or inflammatory kind of responses in your GI tract, that is 100% possible. And I've worked with a lot of people who, when we did remove some of those food symptoms, really just became so decreased and so much better. So it's definitely a thing. But here's what I always stress with that. You can't just remove foods and not do anything about the gut tissue itself. And the way I describe this is, imagine you had a party at your house and it got a little bit out of control, and people were kind of leaving cups and dishes and glasses, and then something got broken and there was just napkins everywhere and somebody spilled their food, and the house was just kind of a mess. And you finally said, okay, it's time to let's get everybody out, right? There's your food elimination. Let's get all these foods out that are causing this problem and causing this mess. And then you came back in your home after everyone left, and you looked at all the mess. You said, great, all the people are gone. I can relax now. No, you're going to clean up your house. You've got to clean up your house to begin living again and begin living in this good environment. And that's exactly what we have to do if indeed it is foods that are causing the problem. When we eliminate those foods, you might experience some wonderful symptom relief, and that's great. But we've got to get in there and heal that tissue up, restore that tissue, revitalize that one cell layer thick of immune modulating, encouraging tissue that you have in your GI tract. So that's one thing that I really work with on people when we are doing this gut work, is it's not just about taking out the bad. And the bad could be, like I mentioned with the gut testing, we're going to look at bacteria, we're going to look at good bacteria, bad bacteria, other pathogens, even parasites and things like that. We're going to look at pancreatic enzymes. How is your food being digested? We're going to look at inflammatory markers. So we really, really look deep into what is the why. Even if this food is bothering you, what is the why behind that, and what do we need to do in terms of repair? How much do we need to do, and what specific nutrients do we need to give it? So that's where I kind of say that. Is there supplementation needed? Like this person, said, I don't want to do supplements, but I feel like I still have these problems. Going back to the gut healing aspect is, I'm going to tell you, absolutely, you might need some, because there's not, when we're talking a therapeutic healing level. Oh my goodness, y'all, I'm sorry, my phone keeps going crazy. When we're talking about a therapeutic healing level of need to do that, we can't get enough just from foods to benefit us that much. We need, you kind of think of it like as a medication that you would take. If you're sick, you need that medication because it's something your body can't do on its own. These aren't medications, these are nutrients that your body needs to repair, to restore, and we just can't get enough from food alone. So that's where I'd say, yes, supplementation can be needed. It does not mean these are supplements that you're going to take forever and ever and the rest of your life. No, these are short-term kind of protocol type things that work to do the job. We work to if we retest, or if we just go based on symptoms, we see that there's been tons of healing, and we can kind of back down on those. So that's where I kind of tell this person, are you going to need supplements? I don't know. Based on a longer history and a longer kind of problematic symptoms and things like that, yeah, you might need a little bit more. There might be a little bit more cause for supplementation to really get in there and do some healing. So but testing is really, I'd use a GI test that is just extremely informative and extremely specific, and just gives a lot of answers, so we don't guess. We're not gonna, well, let's try to take this food out, let's try to put this food in, let's try to put this nutrient in. We know exactly what we're looking at, and we get straight to the cut straight to the chase. It really helps a lot. So and Jen says, I had radioactive isotope therapy for toxic nodules, and I'm now newly diagnosed hypoactive thyroid. Are there any pivotal changes? Ooh, goodness, that's a great question. Once you have, and I'll pop in with this one, then we'll get back to these others, because I was done with that question. Once you have the radioactive therapy, if there has been tissue damage to the thyroid, a lot of that is, unfortunately, it's irreversible. You say you're now newly diagnosed hypoactive thyroid. So yeah, because we've damaged that tissue is irreparable. We can't repair it. So it's basically like dead tissue. It can't produce those hormones anymore. So it's kind of like that part of the thyroid has been removed. You can see my little scar. I've had part of my thyroid removed, not my whole thyroid. So it's almost the same thing, like that portion of your thyroid that received that blunt trauma, that blunt radioactivity has been damaged to the point of it can't function anymore. So it's like it's not there. Are there pivotal changes you can make in your diet? Absolutely. Now, I don't know if you're going to have to go on medication. That's going to be something, obviously, that you would work on with your practitioner, and looking at those levels really closely. And it's going to take some time. I'm just going to tell you, thyroid medication, I actually talked about this on another live that I did. There's a lot of medications out there, and if we're, I've personally been on every single one. Oh, you're on it now. Yeah, and it can take a while for your body to regulate with that. So hopefully you've found a good one, and hopefully it's working, and it's keeping your levels not just where a lab wants them to be, but where your body wants them to be. One thing I like to look at is kind of pre therapy, the isotope therapy that you had, the radioactive therapy. What were your levels like way before that, if there were any testing? I personally did not have a lot of information to go on before I started having some of this, my hypothyroid, my story, because when you don't have a problem, they're not checking. So I didn't have a lot of pre-information to go on. I had some, but not to the depth that I would have liked to have had it, knowing now what I know. So in terms of dietary changes with hypothyroidism, there's a lot of general recommendations that you will hear. The biggest ones will be avoid gluten, avoid dairy. A lot of people with hypothyroidism tend to be kind of more sensitive to both of those, and the symptoms that you experience from those can be unique. I personally am sensitive to both of those, and that's based on testing. It's not just based on, oh, I want to be cool and give up gluten. I have an extremely high immune response to gluten, and that sometimes comes in tandem with thyroid disorders. Now, if there were some autoimmune reasons for those nodules to form, there could be, looking at your antibodies and things like that would be important. That's where things like gluten and dairy become even more important. Things like even corn, soy, kind of those big overarching, what they call autoimmune type foods, or where you see like autoimmune paleo, they'll remove certain foods. Those are the big ones. I would stick certainly to, as much as you can, real, and now easier said than done sometimes. I'm very realistic in recommendations, but also very honest in what can help us all the most. But as much as you can do, like real, whole, colorful foods, as much as and as close as they are to the roots that they had on them when they were growing, or if they're animal foods, as much as they are as closely as they are to how they were when they were living, and let's say a chicken leg or a chicken thigh versus a chicken nugget, right? It's a little bit more removed from what it used to be. Are best. Making sure that you eat protein is something that our hormones need. Proteins and fats. We need carbs too. I'm not like this carb restricted person at all, but I think we need to focus a lot more on protein and fats when it comes to hormone health, because those are things that our hormones use them to carry around in our body. Hormones don't just float around on their own. They need to be carried. They need to kind of get in a car and go from point A to point B, and the things that do that for us are proteins. So making sure that you really include good sources of protein at meals, mini meals, if you're not, having a whole meal, as I like to call it, no naked carbs. If you have something like an apple, coupling that with some nut butter, or some nuts, or some, what other protein source. If you do dairy, maybe it's something like a yogurt, and you have some protein in there. If it's a non-dairy yogurt, adding something like collagen to it, or hemp protein, something to really boost the protein content. Including a protein, especially at your breakfast, not starting your day with a super carb heavy breakfast, because again, those hormones want to know they're safe. All of our hormones need to be told this atmosphere, this environment is safe. We can make more, we can allow our communications to go on, and again, protein is one of those things that really helps our hormones do that. So starting your day with something really nice protein source is good. I don't recommend, not saying you're doing this, I have no idea, but for women who are experimenting like with fasting and intermittent fasting and stuff, I don't recommend that a lot, especially when we have diagnosed hormone kind of dysregularity, because again, our hormone system needs to know our body is safe, and any kind of long period of fast is a stress to our body, and it's kind of oh gosh, I don't know when she's going to eat again, so let's kind of turn these volumes down until we know we're getting food. So unless you're on working with someone who's really, really skilled in that, and working with you uniquely, that's something to be careful for too. So not going a super, super long time between meals. And I know in terms of weight management, I know seems kind of counterproductive, but sometimes the more we cut back, the more that works against us. So those are kind of some simple little tips. It could be also, for going back to even this previous question I had about gut health, I see gut imbalances a lot with weight, kind of not that we clear up the gut and all of a sudden weight starts, dropping off, but it can definitely hinder, depending upon what levels are high. We're more bacterial than we are human. We have more bacterial cells in us and more DNA than we do human cells. And so when those numbers get out of balance, it truly does. When you say, oh, I'm being controlled and I'm out of control. Well, yeah, you are. I mean, give yourself permission, because sometimes those bacteria can really take over and influence us in ways that we don't consciously understand and think and feel. But they are kind of speaking to us and encouraging us to eat or not eat and do things. So that would be another thing. So kind of a long, convoluted answer, but I hope that helped a little bit. Okay, number 3 for the questions I got, cycle charting. And this must have been, I've been doing a kind of a series this week on charting your cycle. So now we're getting more specifically into hormone health. So this may have stemmed from this one, from those posts a little bit. But someone said, what are your thoughts on using LH strips? And I must say, I don't know if this was in lieu of charting your cycles or in addition. So I'm going to kind of answer that both ways. So if you're not familiar with cycle charting, check out my Instagram post this week. It involves 3 main things of charting and kind of monitoring your physical signs, and that's cervical mucus, basal body temperature, and your cervical position. So those are the 3 things that, if you are cycling, whether you're using that to prevent pregnancy, to attain pregnancy, to just monitor your hormones, it's so helpful and so just gives you so much information about your body by monitoring these signs that you have on a day-to-day basis, daily. So what this person was asking about the LH strips, so LH, luteinizing hormone, is a hormone that you produce as women during your cycle, and it's one of the shortest kind of surges of hormone that you have throughout the menstrual cycle. Estrogen and progesterone get these really long curves and such, and LH just has this like boom, boom. It's like up, down. I'm here. I'm doing my thing, and I'm done. So he kind of pops in to do his thing, and he's done for the cycle. And when LH happens, when you get this LH surge, is right before ovulation. So your estrogen throughout your first phase of your cycle, the follicular phase, if you're familiar with that term, when your follicle is developing, your estrogen begins to rise. When your estrogen gets up to a certain level and that follicle is mature and it's kind of ready to be released, ready to release the egg, luteinizing hormone, so high estrogen and this mature follicle kind of speak to luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone sends its stuff out, and that's what stimulates and triggers the egg to be released from the follicle. So what these LH strips do is LH strips, you use them, it's kind of like almost like, a pregnancy test. You just use it in your urine, and it tests the level of luteinizing hormone that you have. So it can tell you, yeah, you're high, you're getting ready to ovulate. So LH is going to tell you the information you need before ovulation. It's going to kind of key you into, hey, you're high enough. Yep, you're getting ready to ovulate. So it's got a short window. Like I said, LH is this kind of, it's here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. So if you don't test it at the right time, or if you're not monitoring these other elements of your cycle, you might miss it. And this is where I would say it's good to use is in conjunction with cycle charting, because it can kind of work as a confirmation of, yeah, look, everything I'm seeing on my charting, my basal body temperature, my cervical mucus, where it's coming and where it's, the consistency and everything. And then I see this LH surge, it's right where it needs to be. So yep, I must be doing all this hormone stuff well, and I must be ovulating. So it can kind of confirm and work with that. I would not suggest using LH strips as a standalone method of monitoring your ovulation. And here's a couple reasons why. One, like I said, it's got a short window. So if you're not doing it daily, and these strips get expensive, so this is not something you're going to start like at this day 1 of your cycle and go all the way through. You're going to start it right around where you're thinking, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm getting ready to ovulate. Let me start doing it on these days. So maybe 5 depending upon your cycle regularity, you may be using these for 5 or so days of your cycle, again, just an average. So If you don't have a really regular cycle, these are going to be a little bit more difficult to use. And you might find that you're kind of wasting some of these. If you have something like PCOS, or if you've been diagnosed with that, your your luteinizing hormone levels tend to stay elevated because we've got estrogen numbers, or estrogen levels too, that don't always come down when they should, and stay higher than they should. So sometimes that estrogen, that high estrogen, can kind of tease LH, and those that luteinizing hormone can kind of keep being released too much. So you can get false positives, and then you get all these like, okay, I'm ovulating for 12 days. What's going on? And it just gets confusing. So when you're using it as a standalone method, it might not give you the information that you need. What are some other things? Yeah, that's kind of, I was just looking at some other notes I'd made with this one. But that's how I would use those. I would definitely use them in conjunction with your cycle, not just by themselves. So hopefully that's helpful. And charting, I'll just give a kind of a plug for that. Charting your cycle is, in my opinion, one of the best free, it's literally free except for the cost of a thermometer, a good thermometer, ways of really monitoring your hormone and cycle health. It's, you get so in tune with your body, you get so kind of familiar with how your body's acting and responding. It begins to correlate even to your moods, to your productivity. You're seeing trends with all of this. So the longer you do it, the more you can kind of correlate all of these things with each other. So it's overwhelming at first, and I never ever recommend someone to start with all of these elements at once, cervical mucus, basal body temperature, and cervical position. It's too much. We start with one thing, and we get that one really good, and then we add another one, and then we get that one really good, and then we add another one. Or a lot of times cervical position is one that kind of gets put on the back burner for a lot of people. If you're really great with your cervical mucus and basal body temperature, those can be enough. It depends on, again, why are we testing, and we have to know the why behind that, and then we know how many specifics we're going to get into. So that's how I work with that with people. So hopefully that was helpful. Definitely a great thing, but use that I would recommend in conjunction with other types of cycle charting. And last question today. I was not hypo with my first pregnancy, and this person meant hypothyroid with my first pregnancy, but am with my second. What does this mean? Okay, this is a great one, and actually something I have a little bit of personal experience with too. So hypothyroidism is many times in women diagnosed after their pregnancy, after they give birth. And one of the reasons is pregnancy, I like to call it kind of a stress test for your thyroid gland. Your thyroid gland, especially during the first trimester, is really put under a pretty taxing situation, because during those first weeks, you are producing not only your own thyroid hormone, but now you're growing a new life. So your metabolic needs have increased significantly, and your thyroid is taking is working for baby. So you're not only working for your own enhanced metabolic needs, you're working to be baby's thyroid also, until his or her gland develops enough to begin producing his or her own thyroid hormone. So it's a pretty big demand on your thyroid, especially early in pregnancy. Many women who get diagnosed with a thyroid condition after giving birth probably had something going on before pregnancy that was never diagnosed. Why? Because we're not testing. And most doctors, unless you have, during pregnancy, unless you have a previously diagnosed condition like hypothyroidism, they're not really going to monitor your levels closely during pregnancy, because it hasn't been a red flag before. So it's not something that is typically monitored during pregnancy. So we could be missing a lot of data, a lot of numbers that might speak to low functioning thyroid, higher antibodies, whatever the case that's causing the thyroid to be stressed. We're not looking at those numbers during pregnancy because there was no previous diagnosis. So that's why many women are diagnosed with something after pregnancy, when their thyroid kind of goes, okay, whoosh, I get a break now, but then all of a sudden it goes, oh man, that was really a stressful time for me, and I'm just not working as well as I should. Whether it's a glandular problem with your thyroid gland itself, whether it's a problem at your cellular level, you're producing thyroid hormone, but your cells aren't being receptive to the thyroid hormone, or somewhere in between. It could be an autoimmune kind of attack on your thyroid that's lowering your thyroid function. So there's a lot of reasons, and that's why I recommend full thyroid testing, a full panel for women, especially post pregnancy. Now, again, that's not going to be always done during pregnancy if you haven't had a condition before. When I work with women, they're mostly pre-pregnancy. They have not conceived yet. So if they haven't had a full panel done, I am going to look at that, just because I want to know what are we getting into, what are already problematic points with thyroid gland, with thyroid function rather, that we need to know before we move forward, going into it all. So it gives you a really great picture beforehand. Postpartum, again, going back to that, maybe after her first pregnancy, this person who asked this question, there were some nutrient deficiencies. Pregnancy is going to strip a lot of nutrients from mom. Baby's first. Baby is priority as we're pregnant, and it's going to take baby's going to take all that he needs from us. And when it comes to nutrient deficiencies, unfortunately, we are going to be the ones to suffer if baby needs them, because that's our first priority, is keeping baby healthy and thriving. So if we come out of our first pregnancy with a lot of deficiencies that again begin to tax our thyroid or other hormonal things, we're already starting off at a deficit, and that's going to make that second pregnancy, we're kind of starting 10 steps backward instead of even up at the start line. Nutrient deficiencies, other hormonal imbalances that pregnancy kind of threw off for us, going back to gut imbalances, they have a huge role to play as well. So those are some of the big things. Autoimmune, that can kind of be stimulated or cause for problem during a pregnancy, and after giving birth, those things just kind of hang around to give a little bit more of a problem going into the second pregnancy. So I would suggest, for this person, if your doctor is willing and able and receptive, is really looking at those hormone levels pretty consistently throughout your pregnancy. Many women have theirs checked every 4 weeks, so monthly during pregnancy, to just see where you're at. I don't know if this person is on medication. She just said she had hypothyroidism during her second, so I'm not sure. But looking at those numbers throughout your pregnancy pretty regularly to know if you are dosing, are you staying at a good level? Like I said, early in pregnancy, your needs are a lot higher. So sometimes later in pregnancy, we begin to need to change dosages of things like that. And then after pregnancy, of course, giving your body some time to heal, and just kind of get back to its new normal. If you're breastfeeding, that even takes a little bit, not longer, but your body is you're still working for another person. So your demands are still higher, and making sure that you're feeding, nourishing yourself, nourishing your thyroid, in all the ways it needs to be, from the right nutrients to enough foods. Again, going back to what I said earlier about proteins and hormone health, your hormones need protein, your hormones need to feel safe and secure and fed. So making sure that you're getting enough and not restricting too much in terms of calorie and such. And just keeping a really good look on it after you deliver the second time, to see, okay, I've had this problem now during my second pregnancy. Is this going to continue once I, get back to this new just me body? And really looking at those levels to make sure that that you're monitoring that and taking care of, being taken care of. So, all right, that covers everything. So hopefully that was helpful to everyone. If you do have any more questions, please leave them in the comments, DM me, however you would like to get in touch. I'd love to be able to answer those for you. And while I'm not your specific practitioner, I can certainly hopefully shed some light on some helpful tips and things that might just enhance your wellness and health throughout your journey. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see y'all later. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.